Yeah, 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 yeah.
And this week on the Weekly Check-In.
When employment opportunities run low, scams go high, right? And this is, this is the big scam, right? In terms of what happened with Colonial Pipeline and how, recently, right, a group called the dark, I forgot the name of the dark light, dark spy, through some way got into the tech infrastructure of Colonial Pipeline, which hacked into it, installed some malware, which ended up shutting down its operational systems and its website, and perpetually shut the oil company down, who has operations starting in Linden, New Jersey, and running all the way to Houston, Texas. As a result of that, it then caused concern about a gas shortage, which ended up people then buying a lot of gas, which then did cause a gas shortage. Cyber attacks are such a grave issue, but let us also talk about maybe the political or the economic ramifications of things that can happen. Like
this was a cyber attack. This was a hit from another country. Period. Point blank. And we know this because who responded about the gas shortage? The president of the United States. Biden does a press conference about it. He deals with it in the press conference. And not only that, as an internationalist, as a Black internationalist who studies international relations, it was typical we've been hit press conference, right? This happened, it's under control. Here's what we're asking you to do because this has happened. That is typical cyber warfare attack. And to me, it's all connected to this fighting that we're seeing in the Middle East. So it is not not connected. It's all connected. It's to draw the United States in to a larger geopolitical destabilization. And so for me, the cyber attack is not in any way a homegrown someone. It was an attack on our sovereignty from another country.
Cyber attacks have been an issue for municipalities and private companies for years. People have been talking about when is the big cyber attack going to take a lot of these systems out. So I just think that Americans need to get ready of what that looks like. I think one of the things that came up in here in this issue is two things I want to respond to. A lot of people were calling people stupid and dumb, and like, look at these hoarders hoarding gas, y'all stupid, y'all dumb. And I'm like, y'all know there was just this electricity outage in Texas during the winter, and some people died because they didn't have.
Not just Texas, right down here.
Yeah, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana.
Right down here. I got sewer. I got confirmed that my sewer cracked. My main sewer line to the house cracked during that freeze.
So I'm just like, y'all do know that people's concerns it's a very real, legitimate issue, right? And so that blows me. But another thing in this whole conversation is that energy companies that are privately owned are not in the conversation that is needed with the federal government when these type of things happen, right? Because the federal government then had to issue an emergency mandate in order to get fuel sent to these areas because Colonial Pipeline was down, and say, okay, we can't do the regular regulation. We just got to get oil there. So these private companies and the federal government, there's some kind of, misstep in communication. But Dane, what are your thoughts about this whole situation?
I think it's interesting that it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy, the way this whole thing dropped, right? Like the media just came out and said there's a possibility of a shortage, which I thought was a bit irresponsible. But the media came out and said there's a possibility of a shortage, which created the shortage. And then I've been listening to the language that has been used around the people who who sent this attack off. And it's very interesting because they said, well, it was people in Russia, but we don't think it was the Russian government. Like, so they're being very specific about making a difference between the two. So I thought that was interesting. And I'm wondering what are the specific reasons they are telling us it was people in Russia, but they don't think it was Russian government operatives hacking. Because to Dr. Sherice's point, this was an attack. This was an attack, a cyber attack, because they even named it ransomware. They said they were ransomware put in the pipelines. But if you look at the technical side of things, what happened was, if they wouldn't have announced this, I think they would only been 5 hours behind their usual runtime of getting things out to the pipe. And another thing that's interesting, I think we should look at, is they made sure they were paid in cryptocurrency. When you see something like that, and you think about the far-reaching repercussions that's going to have, because cryptocurrency is still untraceable in certain parts if you have the right, software. But also, this is going to be something that I'm sure is going to be brought up when you're talking about the Green New Deal. This is going to be something that's brought up about when you're talking about Elon Musk, and because I think Elon Musk is going to move out of private, and he's going to start moving into government contracts really soon, which is why you hear him having all these conversations about Dogecoin and cryptocurrency. You hear him talking about all these things with, he already is cutting edge of alternative energies. He's about to drop a truck. He's about to drop a couple of other things. So I think all of these things is all part of the same dinner bowl, right? Like, if you look at it, like, I think all of this is part of, you're going to see this be able to be used to say, look, they could even hack gas, which you would think it would be the most analog thing, right? Like, how can you stop people from getting gas through pipelines? So it's like, you can hack gas, you can even hack electric, but it would be easier to restart electric, right? Like, if you're making the argument on the Senate floor, what you're going to say? Okay, if they hack electricity, we have power grids. We have, to your point, Kaya, about the government having the power in the private company. So I think you should, take a look down the line, and we're going to see that there's going to be a battle between the public and private entities about energy, because this is going to be the conversation about electric energy, and I know they have hydrogen energy coming next. Electric energy, hydrogen energy, and
wind and
wind and solar. They just opened up. So Dane is exactly right. So this is why I'm telling you, this is a far more reaching proposition. And I'll tell you very quickly, right, as the internationalist in the conversation, why they named it. So let's be clear. Russia hacked our elections. We know that they hacked our elections not only in 2016, but they hacked them again during the Biden administration. Biden made that clear and said that they had reached out with repercussions for that attack. So there has to then be a counterattack, which we knew was coming. So the reason that I now announced it was from Russia, but it wasn't Russian officials, is so that Russian officials have the cover of saying, wait a minute, that wasn't our attack. Because if we get into this attack back and forth, Russia knows they lose, period. They know they do not have the economic standing right now to win. And so what are they trying to do? Is they're trying to get us into this engagement back and forth. Well, there are powers that be that want to get us into this engagement. Why do they want to get us into this engagement? Because it all goes back to President Obama, who came in 2008 and said, we are going to start separating ourselves from the dependency on fossil fuels. So now I'm opening up a whole new energy sector, and I'm going to start pumping money into it. Well, he did. One of the companies, I can't remember, Ellipsa or whatever, failed, right? They put a lot of money into it, it failed. And so he had to draw back. Well, Trump comes in, doubled down on opening up oil, fracking, all of this. Remember that. He doubles down on this crude oil and the use of fossil fuel energy, right? What has Biden done? He's gone back to the Obama playbook and said, wait, we're going to take a more pragmatic approach, right? We're not going to go full steam ahead like Obama did in 2008. We're going to act more like Obama did in 2012. But now we're taking a more pragmatic approach. What does that then mean? Well, that is then going to then destabilize the global international market when it comes to crude oil. Because as soon as the United States is not extracting all of this oil from the Middle East, then it doesn't allow for us to stay there in military conflicts. It doesn't allow us to then police that part of the world. And there are people that need to get paid for that militarization. So there's all of these domino effects that are existing. And so the hack serves many purposes. It allows Republicans to push back on this expansion into renewable energy sources. It allows then for Bibi Netanyahu inside of Israel to make a larger, a bigger stance as to why he needs to stay in power and why the United States needs to keep their relationship with Israel. It then it allows for private corporations to then ask for more federal funds to then protect their cyber systems. I mean, there's all of these connections from this, and I don't know if you noticed, it's politically timed as well. So let's be very clear that Memorial Day weekend is the start of the summer holiday. We know that summer travel is supposed to be up. That's what economists are predicting, that summer travel is supposed to be up. Summer travel most of the time does not depend on jet fuel. It depends on crude oil because most Americans drive across the country during the summer. And we know that international flights, because of things that are going on with COVID, are reduced. So to me, there's all of these different prongs as to why this attack, why now, and what it means for us is that we have to be vigilant. We need to be, if we're going to hoard oil, then you need to do it in a responsible way. And don't be like the lady whose car burnt up while she was getting chased by the police.
Well, it's so interesting. These are some really good points. You all are making me think about a lot of things, but I do know for a fact that the United States has a very impressive oil reserve, especially because people weren't driving during the Rona. They had it before the Rona, the shutdown. So I'm thinking, like, what happened to all these oil reserves? This is really kind of making me think about all of the different things.
Well, Kayi, when it comes to the oil reserves, very quickly, when it comes to the oil reserves, legislation that Obama passed made it difficult for us to go into those reserves. So that is why when this emergency happened, that's why they were able to get the oil there so fast, because there's provisions in there for emergency.
So that's why the mandate that they put, the emergency mandate. Got you.
That's why you have to put the emergency mandate, because I don't want to get too historical, but if you go back further back, there's called the Teapot Dome scandal that happened in the 20s. It happened during 20s and 30s, right after the Great Depression. So what happens after depressions or after economic downturn is that people try to rush to resources, to natural resources, because that is then where the value is going to be. We've seen this before. And the Teapot Dome scandal, basically, the federal government was winking and nodding and then allowing corporations to go in and take oil out of the oil reserve and then sell it on the market. Well, Obama made it so during a part of this is why I always say Obama was, playing chess while the folks was playing checkers. So while he's pushing moving us away from fossil fuels, he's slipping pieces inside of this legislation that makes it more and more difficult for you to tap into those reserves. Okay. And so that is why you're seeing which is why there's an emergency mandate required to get the oil then to move.
Let me just say this too as well. I think often when we talk about issues, the low person on the totem pole is always the blame. The person at the gas station with 20 cans of gas is the last person you need to be worried about, because there's so many middle people for the gas to come. There were reports that gas stations had the gas, but they were acting like it wasn't. The gas stations were the one who drove. I mean, my people in California were reporting $5 a gallon gas, right? And so then you have the people who supply the gas station. So there's this whole, apparatus, that comes. And so just blaming it on the 20 can gas is the low person on the totem pole. I think people need to put that into perspective. I also think, go ahead.
No. And the last piece about that is that's why to your point about not talking about the lowest person on the totem pole, that's why Mitch McConnell is coming out and saying, because of this hoarding, right, because of the lowest person, now we need to expand the gas tax, right? Now we need to expand the federal gas tax to pay for the fact that to pay for the expansion in infrastructure, to pay for the fact that we've had to push out this gas, to all of these things. Well, now you're making the lowest person on the totem pole suffer behind legislative decisions that you've made. Number one, increasing the gas tax and putting the money in the highway fund, where the money goes from the gas tax. You've been robbing that for years to pay for wars and everything else. So what you're also trying to do is penalize the middleman to put more money in the coffers for you to go take for militarization.
That's a good point. And I also want to connect what Dane was saying in terms of we cannot let this Elon Musk dude go, okay? It's really interesting that the Tesla guy on the electric car says something that makes the cryptocurrency plummet. Then you have this gas crisis, right? Then he says something and now the cryptocurrency has shot up again. There's a lot of manipulation in these markets that we need to acknowledge, right? And so I thought that I never thought about that. That's really interesting, and how there's such a push that of what cryptocurrency and how it's embedding itself more and more in how we do business. This is going to be really interesting.
Well, yeah, Kaya, they want to use it because they want to circumvent sovereignty. That's the biggest reason you want to use a cryptocurrency, is because you can circumvent sovereignty. Right now, the reason that the United States dollar is seen to be more stable than the euro is because 18 to 20 nations got to get together to decide what to do with that currency in comparison to a couple of old white men here in the United States to make a decision about this dollar. So to your point, right? If I can trade in cryptocurrency, I have essentially usurped the sovereignty process, where I do not have to go back to the state and get the state's buy-in. And what I mean by the state is get the government's buy-in to do anything that I need to do. I can circumvent them completely.
But I think that goes in, but I think what's going on goes to Dame's point of Elon Musk making a play to move from the private sector to the public sector. There's like this term that I always use that, in my opinion, describes accurately what's happening with the Bezos of the world, the Gates of the world, the Musks of the world. We have moved from the merchant class, right, which established a class back in the age of discovery, and we're behind the French Revolution and the tearing down of these feudal systems that we talked about, to what I call the microchip class. So now you have all these people in tech who have flipped the economy over, and now so much so that they can even have grave influence into politics, culture, health, and things all over the world. So this microchip class that we're seeing is doing this very interesting play. Gates has his thing, in public health and global health. Bezos is in this global trade, and Musk is finding his thing in the cryptocurrency, and how because governments are going to have to step in, or they're going to be like, we need to regulate this. If we want this to be an official currency that we use, there has to be some kind of regulation. And boom, here comes Elon Musk popping up, right? This is really interesting. We don't do Bitcoin, do Dogecoin. This is the one, right? This is going to be interesting.
And now he knows he has that power too. That's the other thing. Now he knows how to, like, this man is manipulating world currency with Twitter and Saturday Night Live. Like, you gotta really think about that. And now that he knows that he can manipulate it, and I was like watching, because I'm invested in certain cryptocurrencies. So when he came out, I was like, Tesla's no longer going to be taking Bitcoin. That was a reason. Like, there was a very specific reason he put that out. And then right after that, he said Tesla's going to start accepting cryptocurrency that's more environmentally sound, and And then you start to see the market and everybody running to go buy the Dogecoin again, because Doge was dropping, and dipping. Once he made that announcement, Bitcoin dropped. And then Dogecoin dropped a little more, then it started recovering after he was saying, like, well, basically, he didn't say Dogecoin, but he basically said Tesla is not going to take Bitcoin, but we're going to take Dogecoin. And then you have that again, like on the heels of a cyber attack to get paid in Bitcoin that's stopping analog gas from getting through pipelines. You're going to see them trying to bring Elon Musk in to figure out how to start getting more electric cars, getting more cars converted, because he's probably going to be the guy they're going to use to go to Ford, to go to Ford and all the other places that make
Dodge,
cars. Yeah,
EMC,
Ford, Dodge, EMC, to make cars, to start getting all of them converted to his electric, his electric technology. Yeah.
But Dan, you're exactly right, because that's how we get the Model T, right? We get the Model T, the very first car that was mass produced because of government influxion into Ford that then produces the Model T. So the same way, right? The same way that we and one of the biggest reasons, if we go back to the auto industry as to why it was saved, it was a huge contributor. It was almost 1/4 of the United States export market to the rest of the world. We export a lot of cars, right? And so if we want to think about this, Joe Biden in the State of the Union address kept saying, we're basically we're in an economic war against China, right? He kept saying that and if there's no reason, this is like literally the quote, there's no reason that China should be leading the world in electric vehicles. It should be us. We're the auto manufacturers of the world, blah, 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 blah. To your point, Dave, all of the foundation has been laid and set for him to come in to then, run or rework the auto industry.
Yeah, and this is, I just found this out today, is Tesla has a special program with certain banking institutions. If you want to finance a Tesla, you can go and there's a certain finance program at certain banking institutions in order to get pre-approved for financing. So Tesla has,
but that's why he moved out of California.
Spaces.
But that's one of the biggest reasons he moved out of California. And that's what people are not talking about. One of the biggest reasons he moved out of California was because of those banking relationships that had been strained. And so he's now moving to Texas because of the lax nature of how the banks are regulated in the state. People have to remember, in our federalist system, every state gets to regulate how those banks work. Now, the bank has to work a particular way to get FDIC to have the insurance from the federal government, and all of them do that and are, above board when it comes to that. But every state gets to then dictate it. That is why on each of your bank accounts, for listeners that may not understand this, that's why there's a particular routing number for every state, because they have to know under what regulations does your account fall under, so that they can decide how they're going to leverage the money in that account based upon the rules of the state. And so one of the biggest reasons everybody's talking about, he's moving to Austin because of the taxes and da. Yeah,
that's what I said. Oh, okay.
But the bigger thing is the regulations when it comes to the banks, and by being in Austin, which is the capital of Texas, he has direct access to the Texas legislature.
And let me say this, Austin is also, in addition with North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, to be more specific, are these two hubs of the fintech. Because in Austin, there are these banks that are directly connected to like Self, credit builder, and build it outside of these traditional banking systems or these credit lines. And Charlotte has been in the financial industry since slavery, has also positioned itself to be a stalwart in fintech. This is very interesting. So these people are golfing and lunching and munching and all these other things. This is really interesting.
If you want to see good news, you don't see on regular TV. From another perspective, something relative to your needs. And we gonna have deep subjects, and we gonna turn the land